Peace is love, Shawn Seaton.
Hi, excellent speech. And today is my birthday. But I'm not 93 or 117. You look great, by the way. Picture this. 3 generations of men in a minivan driving down a dark, deserted country road. Grampy was in the back, wrapped in as many warm things we could find. He had a baseball hat on his head, and it was sideways, like a rapper. And he's 87, a little younger than you. I looked back at Grampy, and he smiled with such gratitude, holding up the peace sign. Grampy is that person in my life that is the eye of the storm, the calm that was not the norm. He taught me so much about peace through our connection. I would see black, and he would see white. I would feel fear, and he would say, "Fight! Fight!" Madam Conscious Chair, fellow Toastmasters and distinguished guests, do you have that person in your life that you can't imagine your life without? That connection that you can't explain, whether it be your parent or son or daughter, grandparent or friend. Who is that person for you? That person for me is Grampy. Rewind to a time before I was 14. Life was a whirlwind of intense emotions, instability. Grampy provided that stability in my life, and our relationship began 46 years ago today when I was born, the first and only grandson he had. Grampy had just finished 30 years of service in the Army, and it happened at the same time I was born. I provided peace for him in new life. He provided peace for me in my life through his stability. Yes, sir, yes, sir. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, military time. He would talk about World War II a number of times, and he would talk about his stories. He said to me quite often, "I found peace in a 1945 Triumph motorcycle, driving down the banks of the River Seine," which is a river in France, in Paris. He told me stories that were not about death and destruction, but they were about the good things that he saw. He was able to see through all the things that were negative. And he taught me that peace is love for this moment. In 2002, Grampy and I took the ride of a lifetime back to France together, just the two of us, on the Concorde. Now, if you know anything about the Concorde, it's a plane, but really it's more like a rocket ship. It goes more than 2 times the speed of sound, which is like 1,600 miles per hour. And there's only one class of service, ultra first class. I had caviar for the first time, bursting in my mouth, the saltiness. Little chocolates were in these little Parisian purses, and they had these weird flavors, but it was just amazing. The smell of French perfume from the flight attendants, and rich people were in the back. I guess that's what you get for $10,000 a ticket. When we got to France, we stayed in the south of France, in Cannes. We overlooked a beach. It was beautiful. But people forgot to tell us that sometimes German tourists, families, like to walk around as a family, nude on the beach. And it just so happened that a German family liked to hang out, and I mean hang out, right in front of our window. It was a good thing that Grampy brought his binoculars. Not. Through these amazing experiences with my grandfather, I learned that peace is love shared with your family to continue a legacy of peace. Now, 4 years later, though, I got the call that no one wants to get. Your Grampy's sick. He's in the hospital. Don't worry about coming. He'll be fine. But having that connection with him, He's that person in my life. Remember that person. I knew that this was it. And I hopped on a plane as soon as I could, and I met my dad at the hospital. I sat beside my grandpa's bed, and this was going to be the last time that I would see him. He was too weak to speak. He was no longer the, "Sir, yes, sir." He needed my help. And he needed my help because I know, and I knew at that moment, that he did not want to be in that hospital bed at that moment. He wanted to die on his own terms. He wanted to have peace. He told me a story when he was a UN peacekeeper, and he would say, "Sometimes you just have to take personal action to stand up for what is right." And to me, peace is love in action. If you don't do anything, you're never going to have peace. So my dad and I did the only thing we knew how to do as both being rule breakers. We broke Grampy out of the hospital. We covered him in blankets. We put a baseball hat on his head. It happened to go crooked. He was too weak to move it. But the smile on his face as we were going through the parking lot in a wheelchair was priceless. And as we're in the minivan, 3 generations of men in a minivan, driving down a dark, deserted country road. Grampy was in the back, wrapped in as many warm things we could find. He had a baseball hat on his head, and it happened to be sideways, like a wrapper. I look back at Grampy, and that moment I will never, ever forget. He smiled with such gratitude, but all he could do was hold up the peace sign. Madam Conscious Chair.